Wondering if people who make candles are in the beeswax. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on the Church mandate. Get it on. And welcome Gabriel Iglesias. We love to speak to Gabriel. Always puts a smile on my face. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. 2014, huh?
Yeah, it's been too long. I was watching, I don't know if it's your last stand-up special, but one of your stand-up specials just a couple of days ago. Not really in preparation for this, just started watching it.
Thank you.
And I thought it was really
that means a lot.
funny.
Usually with comics watching other comic specials, that's, it's rare.
No, and I was really impressed that the skill you had, but I'm also kind of thinking like you're a storyteller with lots of jokes peppered in. I guess that would be the style.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And we'll talk about cars and VW buses and all the stuff you love, because I love all that shit too. First, I should say a Dodger Stadium, May 7th coming up, that is sold out. Sold out at Dodger Stadium. That is a stadium where the Dodgers play. That is sold out, and a new show, his second show, has been added the day before on May 6th. There's Fluffy in the Field. We're putting people out in the field, and when that fills up, we'll get them back out into the bleachers.
Maybe. Well, here's the thing: is that we're doing a taping for Netflix, so you always want to have a backup just in case. So that's why anytime I tape a special, I tape 2 shows just in case something happens, and something always does happen. Whether it's a technical or somebody being ghetto in the crowd, or you never know. I've had Amber Alerts go off during my show, so
right.
That's
But mostly people do that in a club or maybe a mid-sized theater. They don't add a second show to a stadium, which is crazy.
It sounds surreal.
It's surreal. Well, you and I both opened for Joe Coy at the Forum a couple of years back, and that was big enough. I was like, God damn, he sold out the Forum. This is crazy. But Dodger Stadium is 45,000 people.
That's exactly what it was.
Jesus H. Christ. Mm-hmm. What size venues do you play around the country?
Usually, places where they do basketball games. So just basketball arenas.
Is L.A. really your home crowd?
Yes, absolutely.
You're from here. I'm from here.
Mm-hmm.
You're, Long Beach?
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
Long Beach.
Long Beach. And tell us about growing up. I'm curious about that life.
Well, which part? Single parent, the last of 6 kids, born in San Diego, but grew up in Long Beach. So from second grade until I graduated from high school, it was Long Beach, and I still live there.
Was comedy always the plan?
It was the dream. I don't know that it was the plan. Usually the plan involves a lot more safety, a lot more security. You want to make sure you have benefits. You have certain things that, your parents will tell you certain things. You want to make sure you have a good, insurance. And when you're a kid, you don't care about insurance. It's not your priority. You dream. I wanted to either be a comic or a transformer. So one of the two was going to happen. I was 10 years old. I did a school talent show, and I fell in love with it.
You did stand-up at age 10?
Yes.
In front of the whole school?
In front of a full auditorium of kids.
Whoever made it.
Whoever was there.
How'd it go?
It went very well.
Do you remember any of the jokes, or do you remember any of the process?
I remember how scared I was. I remember how scared and excited I was. Basically, what I did was I went out on stage. I didn't really consider it comedy. I considered it more like I was doing impressions and characters, and I wasn't sure what the reaction was supposed to be. And then someone told me, well, you should break the ice with the crowd by telling a joke. I'm like, I don't know any jokes. And then they said, well, here's a joke for you. And 10-year-old me goes on stage and says, why'd the chicken cross the road? And I said, to check out the chicks. And people started laughing. I'm like, is that supposed to happen? Mm-hmm. I did not know that that was the reaction. And then I started doing impressions. So a little kid, doing impressions of Pee Wee Herman, Yogi Bear, Ronald Reagan. Keep in mind, this is 1987. Mm-hmm. And every time I would do them, they'd laugh and clap. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what's supposed to happen. And at the very end, I was just so scared and so relieved that I was off stage. And then people started coming up and go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, I did not know how to take it. I just knew that I did something that was cool.
And was it that from that point on, like,
that was it. I was hooked.
Bit by the bug?
Yes.
But at age 10, you hear these stories of comedians, Chris Rock, whoever, they're young, their mom drives them to the club and stuff like that, but not a 10 or 11-year-old version of that story.
The 10-year-old version of me was basically, that was what inspired me. It's not like I started doing stand-up right after that. It was another 10 years before I actually got up on stage and called myself a comic and tried to do it for real.
Where was that?
Long Beach.
And so why, I mean, I know you had to take 10 to 16, 17 off, but you made it a full decade. Like what were you doing at 18?
Well, it was one of those things where I was in school and I didn't really have a way to, my mom wasn't about to take me to a club. And then I tried going to a comedy club in Long Beach. There used to be a comedy club in Long Beach right there on Pine. And my brother actually took me there one night, and we tried to go in, and they're like, nope, he's a kid, he can't come in. He goes, well, he just wants to watch. Like, nope, can he stand at the door and watch? They're like, nope, you need to you need to back up. You got to be 21 and over to enter and even be there. So they kicked us out. So the only way that I got access to comedy was, watching HBO or, Def Jam. That was the thing to watch back then. I got into football. I got into just sports and all kinds of other things in high school. And then I got into speech and debate. And I think that's what really sparked everything. Every day I was getting up in front of the class just to talk. I didn't have to be funny. All I had to do was talk about my day. And the teacher was always inspiring us to get up in front of people and just tell us about your day. The whole idea is to get over your fear of public speaking. And just, public speaking is something that people need. And if you're good at this, you'll always have something. And so every day I'd get up in front of the class and talk. And I hated turning in stuff in writing. So it was just me going up in front of the class. And I got an A for just going up in front of the class every day.
Where was your mom and your siblings with the comedy? Did they supportive? Did they think it was you were good, you had something, or were they trying to steer you in some other direction?
In school, you could say whatever it is you want to do, and as long as it's something that makes you happy, then they're supportive. But it's not until you got to pay some bills, and then they're like, hey, because I had a decent job. I used to work for a company called Robinson's May, which became, which before was Robinson's, and then it was May Company, and then they merged, became Robinson's May, and now Macy's bought them out. So, I used to do telemarketing and customer service.
And so you had a job. Was your dad around anywhere?
No, I've got a single parent. My mom did everything on her own. Dad was out of the picture when I was 4 years old, and he was an entertainer. He was a mariachi.
Oh,
he performed
really?
all over the place. And so, 20 some odd years later, after being an entertainer, I have a whole different understanding of my father's position in life and realize, there's two sides to every story. So,
did he circle back and try to reconnect with you?
He did about 15 years ago, and I wasn't ready. And recently, probably this last in December. His birthday's ironically enough December 25th, so it's like, sorry, I don't remember, Dad. It's you and Jesus. So my cousin reached out and she's like, "Hey, I'm here with your dad." I go, "Well, you tell him I said hello." And he was so excited that I said hello, and he sent me this long paragraph of like, there's no way to change the past, but if there's an opportunity to hang out, I'd love it. And I'm like, I might give that to him.
Well, it's funny. I was interviewing Gene Simmons from Kiss last week, sitting where you're sitting, and he never met his dad. And he grew up in Israel, or was born in Israel, and then moved out here. And he said later on, when Kiss became the biggest band in the world, that he always would send money back and kind of support him and bought him a house and stuff like that. But he just didn't emotionally have the connection. And I think there's two different heads on that. One head is it's your blood. And then the other head is more of a Gene Simmons head on it, which is I didn't know the guy. Like, why do I need to start knowing him now?
No.
With an element of, hey, son of a bitch, shouldn't have left. Where are you like in that world?
I was in that for many, many years. And again, I think it just took me being an entertainer and living this lifestyle to where I had a different respect and understanding for his position back then. Because he's an entertainer. He's on the road every single week. My mom met him at a show. They got together. They spent some time together. And my mom made it very clear that she loved him. She goes, "No, I really loved him." And she's like, "You were made with love." And I'm like, well, apparently I was made with mariachi music too. But for me, for many years, I was just resentful of the fact that I didn't have a dad. And it was more so because people would ask me, "Where's your dad?" And so that would always be like, "Well, it's just my mom." "Well, what about your dad?" "Well, I don't have a dad." And then there was always those questions. And so that, I think, built up more angst than anything. It was like, oh, like, God, I hate this. But at this point, I think I'd want to just hang out with him to hear him talk about my mom. My mom's gone, so I would love to hear his stories about getting to know my mom and what she was like, because she really spoke highly of him until she didn't.
Are you the only child from that?
Yes. So all my siblings are half, and they're much older. So there's like a 13, 14-year gap between my sister and myself. So it was like growing up an only child because there was nobody else in the picture.
And so do you think your dad circled back because he started to hear about you, or do you feel like he was just come to a place where he wanted to reconnect?
I think it's got to be a combination of the two, because I would do bits about him. And so he found out because, family here, family there. It's a big family. And, regardless of whether it's him having regret or wanting to get to know me, or the whole comedy thing is just, I'm cool either way.
So you guys feel like you're going to reconnect at some point?
I think so. He's 80 years old now, and at this point, come on, he's already made his money. He's got his own house. He doesn't need anything from me other than just, hey, can we have a connection? So I think he knows that, and I'd be open to it.
So we'll jump back in time. So now you're 20. You got the job at Robinson's May. I remember the May company out here. And Robinson's. No, what's Robinson's, right?
It was, what is it, J.W. Robinson's? It was like, they used to have those fancy commercials with the guy with the accent.
So you're doing all right, but not, you're not living the dream. And you always have comedy. Like you were always a clown in high school, junior high, and all that. Were you a class clown?
No. And believe it or not, I was actually very serious. It wasn't until I got up in front of the class that, when I had eyes on me, that's when I turned it on. That's when I'm like, all right, let's have fun. But for the most part, though, if it's just me solo, I'm very, I got one or two people around me. I usually listen. I'm really good at just listening, read the room, see what's going on. I've hung out with a lot, as I'm sure you have, some guys that just don't turn it off. And after a while, man, you're just like, dude, just come on. Can we hang out? Can we just have a drink? Is it cool?
Yeah, it's a little obnoxious, and it's kind of like, it'd be fun having sex with a porn star, but not every night. It's like, it's almost too much. Some guys who can't just shut it down, and maybe they can shut it down, but because they're in front of you, they're wanting to impress, And so part of it is kind of a tip of the cap, to you, because they're only doing it to try to get you to sort of appreciate them. Yeah, the guy sells out Dodger Stadium thinks I'm funny.
Nice.
So,
but back in school though, it was just, I wasn't trying to be, over the top or attention. It was just, I enjoyed being up in front of people. For some reason, I felt like a certain level of respect that I didn't get in just regular everyday life. I was always a chubby kid. My teeth were messed up. I was not popular. I had pimples all over my face. And so it was just, I was regular. I was just average or below average in the hallways. But when I got up in front of that class, I commanded a certain level of like, no, now you're going to listen. And people were like, oh, tell us more stories. And so they enjoyed that. They wanted to feel connected. They wanted to be close, and they would talk to me after differently. And that, I think, is what really motivated me, because I'm like, when I'm up here, man, I matter. I stand out.
So then we go to 20, and you're going out on stage. Now, have you been performing, or is this getting back to it at age 20 for the first time?
Getting back to it, but at the same time having a year's worth of being in the speech. Remember, I was able to get up in front of class every day, so I was very comfortable once I decided I wanted to try stand-up again. Getting up there, I wasn't afraid to be up there. I wasn't afraid to talk, and I wasn't afraid of silence. So I just had to work on. All right, let's try doing the whole character thing again. So I went up there, just started doing voices. And little by little started building that setup.
Yeah, I taught comedy traffic school for like a year. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing the same thing you were doing in speech class, which is, if I can stand in front of these people, in this case for like 7 hours, because the class was like 8 hours. I don't know, you got a half-hour lunch and 10-minute breaks here and there, but it was probably shook out to be about 6.5, 7 hours of standing there in front of this hostile crowd. Like, they didn't want to be there. They mostly blamed me for some reason. I didn't get the fucking ticket.
Yeah.
I was just a teacher. But I thought, if I can stand and really do this in front of these people, then that'll translate into something. Then 15 minutes is not going to feel that long on a comedy stage.
Yeah, once you've done hours.
I'm doing hours. So it's kind of interesting because now when I think back on your stand-up, it's pretty conversational. It's storytelling. I can now see that base you built with the speech class.
Mm-hmm.
And it's jokes, but it's jokes woven in very, very skillfully and not just a sort of set up punchline style.
Yeah, I've never been good at just regular setup punch. It's more so just let me go up and talk and be as fun and as just enjoy the story that I'm telling. And I think as long as I'm having fun with it, then they're like, okay, it's whatever the mood is that you're trying to create in that, depending on what you're talking about. There are certain times when I'll talk about stuff that gets deep, like my dad or the passing of my mom, or situations where you're just struggling with relationships or, mistakes that you've made. And you don't necessarily want to make it a hoo-hoo ha-ha moment. You need to make it a situation that people understand. Like this was a rough patch. This was a rough moment. And so you got to, apply that accordingly.
Well, one of the stories we're talking about, some weight loss stories in there always, I think you're at your
I go up and down.
Because 445 was your peak.
Peak, yeah.
Right.
And so right now I'm 100 pounds lighter than that.
How did you get down 100 pounds?
The first time I did yoga, and I stopped eating like an asshole. So I mean, it was bad. I was just every night it was Thanksgiving. People say going on the road with Gabriel Iglesias could cure world hunger, because every night we were just going for it. Every single, and then people, of course, I had the Gabriel Iglesias loves chocolate cake. So every night people would bring pastries and cakes and cookies, and it was just excess every single night. And so, you're going for it, and then you're passing out right after, and you're not doing much during the day except for heading to the next place to do the show. And so, I just put on all those pounds. And so eventually when we decided, okay, after visiting the doctor, and the doctor's like, dude, come on, you got to stop. You're young, so you can recover, but if you keep this up, it's going to catch up. And so I started doing yoga. I stopped eating everything. I stopped drinking for a while, and the pounds came off.
Yeah, there's not, it's nothing magic about it.
It's not rocket science.
It isn't. It's just kind of diet and exercise. And like I said, don't eat like an asshole. I know you worked during Mr. Iglesias with my partner, Kevin Hench.
Kevin!
And I love that guy. That guy's on keto. Pretty damn hard.
Kevin Hench, I'd always make fun of him. I go, hey, so how much salmon did you have today? Because the guy doesn't even try, and you can always see veins, and he's always ripped. And I'm like, dude.
I know. It's so. I go out to dinner with him frequently, and it's like,
what bread?
Yeah, bread. Nothing. You get nothing you want. Because what I've realized is, I was talking to Dr. Drew about this, but you can tell me. But I think this is a good way to go. I have friends I can go out to dinner with, and when the bread basket comes around, they go extra butter. And then there's Kevin Hench,
yes.
And then there's Dr. Drew, and then there's a couple other people. And when I go out with them, I don't get the bread and I don't get the potato because I feel ashamed. Like they're looking at me. They're going to watch me eat this bread basket, and it's more painful than whatever the pain is of denying myself the bread. And I started to kind of realize if you can get more of those people in your universe, it'll slow your roll a little bit.
It'll slow your roll. I go to eat with my personal trainer. And in the beginning, it was uncomfortable because he's like, yeah, man, blah, blah, blah. And he starts telling you about the workout plan and then how you got to eat. But then we go eat, and he's like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, because in the gym he's like, yeah. But then we go eat, and he's like, dude, man, you gonna order cookies? I'm like, this is crazy. I'm hanging out with my personal trainer eating, and he's like, go for it, dude. So there's no, But I do have friends that I definitely do not enjoy being around when I'm eating because they have a very different life.
It's like I said, it can be. It's kind of interesting. Like I grew up with a lot of guys that didn't want to be around successful people because it was kind of shaming to them. They wanted to hang around. I had a friend, he'd meet these guys playing pickup basketball and hang out with them, and he was kind of the belle of the ball, even though he just lived in a shitty apartment in North Hollywood, but he had free cable or whatever. So he was like the big fish in the small pond. Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking, I'd rather hang around with successful people and be the least successful person there, but try to up my game.
learn from everybody
And learn
else.
from them versus be the most successful loser in this pack of otherwise losers. And yeah, I don't know how you feel about that because we both sort of come from the old neighborhood a little bit. You got to kind of deal with that. We grew up regular high school, all that shit. Do you have a lot of your old friends? Do you have like the neighborhood guys? Are there the guys you tried to help, but they tell you, you're not the fucking boss of me just because you're big star, Fluffy?
It's funny you mentioned that. I had a conversation recently, and I come to find out apparently I was the most successful out of everyone, and that I needed to start having more. I needed to start hanging out with different people that were trying to be driven, people that had their own businesses, people that thought outside the box, that weren't just doing the same thing they were doing back in high school. Because unfortunately, haven't grown the circle much over the years. I mean, there's, of course, once you get into the business, there's the business side of it. But as far as just having regular relationships with just, can we be cool, hang and stuff like that, it hasn't grown very much.
Yeah, I think people think there's a certain nobility in hanging around with the old guys from the neighborhood. And there kind of is, but some of those guys aren't fantastic. Some of those guys just want you to invest in their Froyo company that they got a plan. They want to open in Arizona, and they're always putting
That's funny. Frozen yogurt or frozen ice, either one. Yeah,
they're always hitting you up for some business idea, and sometimes it's nice to
hear me out.
Hear me out. You want to diversify a little bit and hang out with some other people that are doing other things.
Yeah. No, I recently started talking to other people that have enlightened me to certain things. I'm like, and my head hurts because I'm like, I don't want to hear about this NFT. I'm
right.
What do you mean crypto? Like the arena? No.
But you do. I've talked to some of those guys too, and then you do realize, oh, there's a whole world out there of people that are doing shit that when we grew up, you didn't have any idea that those people, I mean, you saw them on TV maybe, but you didn't know they were out in the wild, like with their hustle on, taking care of business, just living that life. And I don't know, what'd your mom do for a living?
My mom did whatever she needed to do at the time. She did so many different things, but I remember one thing she told me was, stop playing those video games because they amount to nothing. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. And like now, I see people making money playing video games, and it's just like, are you kidding me? And then being able to create businesses inside of this metaverse and like it's this rabbit hole of like things that are possible, and you don't even have to leave your house. And it's scary. Yeah,
it's scary. And it's also scary if you have kids because you can't really tell them, oh, you'll never amount to anything
you
doing
can't use those
X,
anymore.
Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Come from the dad who does a podcast. You know what I mean? Like a job that didn't exist 10 years ago. So...
And I start to feel like someone who doesn't want to grow because I'm like, I don't want to put on the virtual reality glasses. I'd rather just go outside. They're like, oh, that's this whole thing and you can learn and this. And I'm like,
Well, speaking of outside, I think I was watching a thing with you on Jay Leno's Garage, and you got one of your VW camper vans or something. I'm in a vague recollection of this. And
yes, we went to El Dorado Park and right there in Long Beach.
How many vans do you have now?
Oh, wow. Somewhere between 25 and 30. And the reason why I don't know the actual number is because some of them are being restored and some are just shells.
Yeah,
so, I mean, there's registrations, but a solid amount that I could just get into and drive right now is at least 22.
What's the jewel in the crown of Fluffy's collection? What is the best VW bus you have?
Ooh, I have 3 that I consider to be equal. They're all 23 window buses. They're lowered. I know. they're tricked.
You get into them, they'll be lowered anyway.
They're tricked.
You can have that one.
But yeah, there's 3, and each one is probably valued around $200.
Yeah, people don't realize that VW buses weren't worth anything back in the day, and like old surfers would just buy them and use them and shit like that, hippies. And then a few years ago, they started coming on.
Yeah.
And then at some point, it was like $100,000 for a VW bus. And
once that happened at the Barrett Jackson auctions on TV were the ones that started driving the price up because people started spending crazy money.
And there are really cool pieces. And I had a friend who had one growing up, pretty indestructible. And just worked. I mean, we would put 7 or 8 people in that thing and leave North Hollywood and go to Malibu, and the thing was gutless, but we all packed in and we all hauled ass. And we drove that thing like a maniac. We'd go off-roading on that thing up on like dirt Mulholland. We went and drove around the school I went to, Walter Reed Junior High. We drove around the lawn and then jumped off the curb and everything. It's like you can't really break those things. And the Germans knew what they were doing, even though
it's like a van SUV type. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's high enough off the ground where you could drive off the sidewalk.
Do you have any other cool stuff in your collection?
Aside from the, I made my little Volkswagen museum there. So and aside from the buses, and it's mostly buses, I do have 2 bugs. But they're not like, there's nothing crazy about them or nothing that really stands out. They're just regular bugs. But I do have a muscle car alley. So I have a complete opposite direction. So the buses are slow and low, and then I got the muscle cars. So I got a big Dodge fan, Mopar. So I got a Challenger, Charger, Hellcat, 300, Trackhawk, Demon. And I have the Bandit, the 2015 Bandit from
Is that
Trans Am Depot.
Is that a Camaro?
It's a Camaro that was converted into a Trans Am from Trans Am Depot.
Smoking the Bandit. Yeah, I think I saw on another Leno's Garage episode, or the same one. I think you were just getting a delivery of that car.
Yes. So so I got those crazy cars, and then I got the bugs. The buses.
So you circling back now. You get up on stage at 20. You do the voices. I don't know if people know that you do all those voices, but they're woven in quite effectively in your stand-up act.
You know who I was a big fan of as a kid was an impressionist by the name of Rich Little.
Sure.
Rich Little, back in the day, he was the guy that you would see at all these roasts. So the Dean Martin roast, all the Comedy Central stuff you see today was based on all those old school roasts from the, late 70s, early 80s. And Rich Little was always one of those guys that would be on stage doing impressions of whoever was being roasted to the T. I mean, This guy was the greatest impressionist I've ever heard.
He's still around. I think he's in Vegas. I think I looked him up a few months ago.
I would pay to go see Rich Little.
I think, Chris, didn't we look up Rich Little and he was in Vegas and he's performing somewhere? Yeah, that was him up there, big velvet tux, big bow tie, and just doing all that. I was the same way. I would watch that stuff and
just
go,
awesome. Best Carson, best everybody. I mean, and I remember seeing what was the movie called where it was the Late Night Wars?
Oh yeah.
I remember
it was called Late Night.
The late shift, I think, or something like that. Yeah. And I remember he played Johnny Carson in the movie, and it was just like, wow. So you close your eyes and you could really see Johnny.
You could do the voices. You had the storytelling. You had the chops from doing the speech class, and now you get up and perform. Goes pretty good. Or you feel good. You have that same feeling again you had when you were 10.
Excited, just getting off the stage, and you can't wait to do it again. You're like, oh.
So when did things start to happen for you?
Well, because of the fact that I was 20 years old when I first started, I still couldn't go into a Laugh Factory or a Comedy Store. I couldn't go in. I wasn't old enough to be in the room. How Eddie Murphy or anybody else did it back in the day is beyond me. However they worked that out, but I could not just show up and walk in. They wouldn't let me.
When you were 20, you probably looked like you were 14.
I had a very baby face, and I had no facial hair, and I just, I looked like I needed to get carted in the parking lot. Period. So, so all of my stand-up happened at bars in the hood. I started in Montebello here in California, and it was one of these. It was like a Mexican restaurant during the day, and then it had its bar area, and then they would show Laker games, and then as soon as the game was over, they'd have comedy on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And so I show up there one night with a couple buddies of mine, and there was a comedy show happening. And I said, man, I'd love to get up there. And they're like, well, go talk to him. But I was already so conditioned to hear no from everybody that, anytime I tried to get close. So my buddy goes, hey, I'll go talk to the guy and see if I can get you, maybe 5 minutes. And I was like, oh my God. So he goes back there and he goes, yeah, come on back. And just like that. And so I went up on stage, and I had for the time, it was a really good set where they're like, hey, you want to come back? And so I came back, and then, hey, you want to come back? I was like, yeah, I'll come back. And then, hey, and then they handed me a piece of paper, and they said, sign right there. I go, why? Well, they're going to give you $50. I'm like, oh, shoot. And a month in, a comedian named Joy Medina, who was booking rooms. He was booking spots in El Paso, Texas, at a comedy club called Bart Reed's Comic Strip. He needed an MC. He goes, "Have you ever MC'd?" And I didn't even know what MC'd meant. That's how new I was. I had no idea. I'm like, MC, like, and I thought rapping. I'm like, MC, MC Breed, MC. Like, well, I can get funky, but I don't know. He goes, well, I'll tell you what. He goes, I can get you $150 to go on the road. El Paso, Texas, you'll work, Wednesday through Sunday, and you just MC the show. And somebody told me, he goes, yeah, you just host. Oh, okay, host. Okay, I get it. And then he gave me another gig for $50 in Phoenix, Arizona the week before. And that was my first time going out. And that was 2 months from the time I started. So 2 months after I started, I was on the road.
And getting paid.
Well, wasn't a whole lot, but I still had my job. I had a really good job working for a company called LA Cellular, which eventually became AT&T Wireless. And I was killing it. I was bringing home $5K a month in commissions. Yes, I was doing really well selling cell phones. And this is back before iPhones, before Samsungs. This is when the popular phone at the time was a Motorola PC550 flip phone. They call it it was a brick phone. And the battery would last a week. You'd put this thing in, it's like a nickel metal hydride battery, and you charge it one time and the battery would work for a whole week. And if you dropped it, you'd probably dent the floor. These things were indestructible, not like these things now. And I was doing very well for myself. And that's when my mom told me, what are you doing? You're making money, you have insurance, your card says PPO. I go, what does that mean? She goes, it means that you're going to be taken care of. And so she was mad when I quit my job to do stand-up on the road for $50 or $150 when I was making $5K a month.
Did were you're really good at your jobs? You were talking to people, you're selling them stuff?
You didn't really have to sell it. I mean, I was set up in a kiosk inside of a Walmart, and the little booth had the cell phones laid out. And, if you came by, you had to pass a credit check. You had to do the whole background, phone call and a deposit. It's either $200, $500, or $1,000, or they got to buy the phone outright.
Which Walmart was it?
I worked at a few different ones. I worked at the Walmart in Cerritos, the Walmart in Paramount, the Walmart in Anaheim, the Walmart in Irvine. Also a bunch of different Home Base. Remember Home Base? It was like Home Depot.
Yeah.
So a bunch of those as well, and Anaheim and all over the place. And I think those eventually became Lowe's, if I'm not mistaken. But I did that for a while, and then I was burning the candle at both ends, because once I started going out and doing shows, and by the way, all the shows were at bars. They were all at bars. I did not get into a comedy club until I went to El Paso, Texas.
Did you just get in a van and hit the road kind of thing, or?
When I went to El Paso, I took a bus. It was like a ghetto Greyhound, which can it get any more ghetto than Greyhound? It was a bus company called Turismo Rápido, which is means like rapid transit or tourism that's fast. And you paid your $75, and they take you from LA to El Paso, Texas. And man, it's rough. Like the things you'd see on those buses. And so I did that for a while.
It couldn't have been anyone else on that bus who was going there to do comedy.
Probably not. And it was funny because once I got into El Paso, I called up the comedy club manager, and he goes, "Hey, I'll go pick you up." And I was waiting out in front of the place forever, and I kept calling him, and he goes, "I went down there to pick you up. You weren't there." I go, "I'm standing here at the sign says Turismo Rápido." He goes, "I went to the Greyhound station." I go, "I can't afford Greyhound. I'm at the place, down the road."
Was it? Did you drive all through the night? I mean, how long?
On the bus? Yeah, it was all night. Me driving, I'm good for 5 hours, and then that's it. So I never drove more than 5 hours anywhere.
But how long was the bus ride from LA to
about 15?
El Paso?
Because it had stops. It had stops, so it was about 15 hours.
Wow. So you get there. Now you're at a comedy club. You're not at a bar anymore. You're still not 21 yet, but they don't care.
No, I started doing stand-up April 10th, 1997. I was 20 years old, and by the time I got to El Paso, so April, May, June, so 3 months in. It was 3 months in, not 2 months. Because by the time I got to El Paso, I was 21.
Oh, okay. So now you're 21, you're in a proper comedy club, and you're doing hosting, emceeing. And how's it going?
And what's funny is because I still have my day job, I basically took the week off. But you got to figure, I was 20 years old. I was balling at 20 years old with making $5K a month. I had no expenses. My car, I had just gotten a new car, so my payments were minimal. My rent was $350 a month. I was always getting free food at Walmart. They were always hooking me up with free stuff. So I had all this disposable income. So we're at the comedy club or the comedy condo, and I'm there with 2 other comics, and I'm taking them out to dinner. And they're looking at each other like, you believe this kid? He wants to take us out to eat. I go, yeah, come on. They're like, what's the club paying you? I go, they're paying me shit. I go, but I got a real job. And so they thought that was the most, interesting thing. I was working with a comic named Dan Bradley. I don't know if you remember that name.
I don't think I know
Dan
that.
Bradley. He was an old school guy. He used to do A&E's Evening at the Improv. Just unfortunately, he's one of those guys that he took his own life a few years back.
Wow.
But it was great working with him. Learned a lot from just being around these vets.
So you're at the comedy condo, which is the place they put you up at that's nearish to the club,
and most of the
right?
time, we as comics, we'll complain about the condo. Oh, don't eat the mayonnaise. Oh, be careful what's in the fridge. Hey, watch out for the bed, But I was just so excited to be out there. I slept on the couch because there was only 2 rooms. And so the headliner got the big room, middle act gets the second room, and it was just a living room. So I'm laying there on this beat-up couch watching TV, and I'm just smiling ear to ear on my phone. On a cell phone talking, for free because as an employee of the cell phone company, my phone was free. And so again, the headliner and the middle actor are like, hey, can I borrow your phone if it's free? I'm like, sure, here you go. And so these guys are just on the phone for hours.
So for you, it was like, this is what I should be doing.
Yes. It was my first taste of like, oh, wow, is this how it's going to be? This is so cool. I didn't care. I didn't want to be in no fancy hotel or whatever. I just love the fact that I was on the road and I was going up on stage.
And yeah, the excitement of getting paid for the first time, like just a notion of getting paid to do comedy. It's that concept. It's revelatory. Like I do remember like when I got paid to do comedy, and it was like, God damn, that was the biggest game changer.
When I first started getting paid, I wasn't like inspired to, oh man, I got to quit my day job, or I got to, like this is it right here. I knew that it was nice that I was being paid, but I already knew that I had a job that I was doing way better. And so it really didn't, I wasn't ready to quit the job yet. I was totally up for burning the candle at both ends. I was 20. I had all the energy in the world. I could be up all night. My hangovers lasted 2 minutes and, I was good. But it wasn't until I did TV. I did a show on Comedy Central. My first TV show was a show called Make Me Laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they brought that back.
Yes. So
that's like a 70s show.
Yeah. You know how it is. They always bring them back.
Right.
So I did this show, and they said, you did really well. Would you like to do a second one? And I'm like, sure. And they're like, the producers really like you. Do you want to do a third? Sure. So I did 3 shows in one day, and then I got the check for that. And that check just blew my mind. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? 1 day's work and they paid me this. And it was so much more
what
than
was
what
it, you think?
It was scale, but after I'm trying to remember back then. I want to say that between the 3 shows, it was probably something around $3,000.
Yeah.
A little bit more than that. But I did that in a day, whereas it took me a month to make the 5.
Right.
And so that was like, ooh, if I do a lot of these, I don't got to do any of those.
Right.
And before I know it, I went out for this show. And that's when I realized just because there's, you get a development deal. I wound up getting a development deal to do a sketch show. And I didn't realize, the show has to get picked up before you start really, I just thought, it's a deal. It's already done. And so I wound up quitting my job. And then the development deal fell through. The show didn't never happen. And I went from making $5,000 a month to making nothing a month because I refused to go back to work. I wanted to make stand-up work. And so I was basically making about anywhere from $50 to $150 a month now.
That was it?
That was it. And so I went through my old money really quick, and I wound up getting evicted from my apartment. My roommate, he goes, dude, you're stupid. Just go back to work, man. They'll give you your job back. I go, I will not go back to work. And everybody was beating me up, but my mom, my sister.
How old
my
were you
sisters.
at this point?
I was 21.
Oh, it's just a year later.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, but I did not want to go back. So I says, okay, I got to make some money. Let me just do something where I can make some cash.
So is it like symbolic for you?
Very much so. I knew that I had to take a chance, and I knew that I was onto something, but I knew that I could not go back. So I was willing to take day jobs for cash. So I remember that when I was working at the home base store, which is, again, like a Home Depot, I met a lot of contractors. A lot of contractors wanted to hire me to go to school and become a foreman because I was bilingual. So they wanted me to be able to run the office and be able to talk to the guys and the crew and stuff like that. So I reached out to one of them and I said, hey, look, I don't have a job right now. And I was like, oh, great, I'll send you to school, blah, blah, blah. I go, look, I just need some regular, get my hands dirty work. Do you have any? And they're like, dude, seriously? They're like, you're overqualified for what we have. And I'll do anything. He goes, all we have right now is just digging ditches to set up for the walls that we're going to build in the ground at these houses.
Sorry. Yeah.
And so I go, I'll do it. And so next thing I know, I'm out there, got a shovel, freaking making holes.
Making $9-10 an hour?
He would pay me $40 cash a day. So remember, this was 98.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay, thank you. And at the end of the day, he's like, really?
You want your mind blown, by the way? I was doing some moving around some stuff at the shop up the street, across the street from the Home Depot up here. Mm-hmm. So I told my guys, I go, we'll go to the Home Depot and get some laborers and let's let those guys help move some of the stuff because you guys are like high dollar guys and I don't need you schlepping everything around. And so go across the street, go to the corral, go where the guys are, the laborers are, and grab a couple of them and bring them back. And then that was a few days ago. And then I showed up this morning, and I said, where's the labor guys? Like, why are you guys doing all this stuff? I thought you were going to grab a couple guys from Home Depot. And they said, yeah, no, we went over there, but it's too much. I said, there's just Home Depot guys waiting in the parking lot. I said, it's $250 a day. I said, $250 a day, no tools, no nothing, just $250 a day for day laborers at the Home Depot. And it's probably not that way if we were in Iowa, but
probably not.
But it's $250 a
Prices
day.
have gone up.
No shit.
Prices have gone up.
So you were getting
$40
for digging. You're calling them ditches, but I'll call them
footings. You know exactly what they are.
There were footings because they were putting a block wall or something in, so they were 24 wide and 24 deep.
I was driving out to Tustin because Tustin was a new development. Basically, it was a newer city. Irvine was more of like ooh, but Tustin was like okay. So we're out there in this new community, and so the guy had a contract to build all these walls in the backyards, and so that's what I was doing.
Look, I used to dig ditches too. I had that job, and it is. First off, it's as slow as a day can go. You know what I mean? Like when
sun's in your face, it's slow. You're dry at a certain point.
I tell people all the time. They go, "Oh, you're digging a ditch." I go, "Yeah, you're planting a dwarf avocado tree in your backyard. Try doing it for 8 hours. Just dig, just nothing else but digging." And that's what they give the guys who don't have any skill, obviously, because anyone can dig. But I'm surprised because, I did it out of sheer desperation. I had nothing. But you had the stand-up, or at least you had a taste of it, and you had the phone sales, sitting in some air conditioning, making $5,000 a week, or a month, or doing pretty good for yourself. It's weird that you had that kind of pride where you're like, I don't want to go back into this easy, lucrative thing. I'll go into the world's hardest job for $40 a day cash. That's pretty backbreaking stuff and go do it just all because you didn't like the optics of getting back into your old job, or you thought maybe it would suck you back into it?
I knew that I was onto something, and I just feel like a lot of times when you get too comfortable with something, you're afraid to step out of that. And I just knew that, like at least digging the holes in the ground, I wasn't committed to it. I could walk away at any time. And my rent was $350 a month. So as long as I cleared my rent, I was going to be okay. But even then, I still couldn't do it because then the repo guy's now looking for my car because now I can't even pay for my car. And then, getting kicked out of the apartment. And then my brother took me in and I wound up sleeping in his balcony for like 3 months over the summer. That's another story.
Outdoors.
And then my sister took me in. And so my sister took me in and she basically said, get a job. And I go, look, I'm trying to do this comedy thing. She goes, well, do whatever it is you got to do. And so I was always making phone calls, calling. This is when you had to network. There was no social media, so you just had to pick up the phone and call the few comics you did know. Hey, do you know any numbers to any clubs or any place I could send a tape? You had to send a tape. You couldn't just send a link through your phone. Right. It was very much, time consuming, and you had to find somebody who had a camera, somebody who could record. Oh, I got a friend who's got 2 cameras and they can edit back and forth. Oh my God, that's crazy. And so for me, going back to my regular job just wasn't an option because I enjoyed the cool things that I had. Like, okay, with money, I could buy the cable box. With money, I could buy the entertainment center. I could buy the nice Tempur-Pedic mattress. But at the end of the day, I was not enjoying what I was doing. Whereas, man, I didn't care if I was sleeping on that filthy couch in El Paso. I knew that at the end of the night, I was going to be up on stage doing what just made me feel happier than anything else. And so it was that almost like a drug where it was just, it was so overwhelming and it felt so good. And I'm like, oh, man, I used to say I would do this for free.
Quick break to talk about Geico. Would you love to save some money on your insurance? Of course you would. And who doesn't love a deal? Well, when it comes to rates on insurance, everything Geico, well, they can help. Insure your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, RV, even homeowners or condos insurance, renters, coverage as well. Save even more with special discounts when you bundle. So get to Geico, get your bundle on, switch today, and see just how much you can save. Simply go to geico.com and get your quote today. I was thinking back on my days digging ditches, and I like to talk like you do and perform and be in front of people and share ideas and stuff like that. And so the monotonous physical job was a little bit of torture because you weren't communicating. You were doing the opposite of what you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But it also kind of freed you up to think about things. Like in a way, doing a repetitive physical action, your brain just floats above. You just go what you
can do it under any situation. You're because I got it. You're like, okay, there you go. Just whatever. Yeah, it's the same. It's
right.
It's
so
routine.
Would you find yourself sort of going nuts, or did you get kind of zen about it and we're like, I'm going to come up with routines or bits or did you bring a notepad and go like, oh yeah, I got to write this down?
I used to in my car, and I still do this. I'll have an idea about something. And back then, I used to try to come up with bits, whereas now I'd rather just share a story about something that happened than try to animate the story and just make it,
build it out.
You build it up, and then you add a voice, you add a sound effect to it, or you create a little thing around it to just, to drive the story and the movement so it's going somewhere. Versus, let me just try to come up with a bit. But I would sit in my car, while driving to work, and I just start talking out loud and trying to do bits with voices and characters and tell stories about people I knew at work, or try to do impressions of people at work just to keep myself, keep it going,
You had to be the only laborer who pulled up in a nice car.
Yes, I had a Oldsmobile Regency 98.
That was fairly new.
It was used when I bought it, but it was very nice. It's a very nice car. They used to call it the mafia staff car. It looked cool. It was people thought it was a Cadillac or a Buick.
I've been on enough construction sites. It must have been weird to see you pulling up in a nice car and then walking out and grabbing a shovel.
Oh, and the other guys with shovels would talk smack to me too, because they're like, they would tell me in Spanish. They say, "Hey you," they say, "Hey tú que hablas inglés, ordénanos una pizza," which is, "Hey you, the guy that speaks English, why don't you use that cell phone and order us a pizza?"
See, that was the other thing, too, is most of the guys I worked with were Latin, too, but my Spanish was so bad, there's nothing to talk about. I was just, I was just gringo.
Just order food,
digging
cerveza.
alone.
Cerveza.
Yeah.
Baño.
Yeah, but there's something... There's something about those guys. There's lessons that can be learned.
Oh, no comic has ever hazed me as hard as I was by those guys on that construction site.
Yes,
the shit talking was just like, oh, like you'd leave there like, oh, that, oh. I felt
well, they
that.
must have been confused by you because
they would call me stupid every single day.
They're perfect English. You speak Spanish. You pull up in an Oldsmobile. You're digging ditches. You're doing voices, you're telling jokes. Like, they must not have known what the fuck to make of you, because there's not a lot of range in those guys. It's kind of the same story, the same fat wife, the same shit. I had I ate cactus for the first time with one of those guys. He brought his wife, like, made food for him and whipped out the tortillas, and he whipped me up what I thought was like a soft taco, and I was like,
You had cactus.
yeah, I was like, what the fuck is this? What kind of chicken is this? And he's like, it's cactus, man. And I was like, cactus?
That's Mexican soy.
I go, where do you get cactus? I was thinking like a white guy, like what part of the supermarket sells cactus? And he just pointed at the hill in Burbank. I send my wife up there. Goes and gets the cactus.
Go get nopales, yeah. And I grew up on cactus. So
you did?
Yeah.
Could your mom make...
My mom would make cactus. She'd dice it up and cook it with eggs.
Would she go out and...
I have no idea how she acquired her cactus.
I've lived in a nice house or two with cactus in it, and out front and shit. Once in a while, you see a nice big machete swipe, and the whole fucking thing's missing. Yeah. And if you go hike around the Hollywood Hills, like under the Hollywood sign and shit, you will see someone's out there getting cactus. What if your mom? She didn't buy it, right?
I have no idea. Again, there's so many questions I have about, I was fortunate enough to have an amazing mom, but I wish I could have her now and know her as an adult. I only knew her as a kid who, started going out there and telling jokes and, didn't really have I didn't go to college. I didn't have, other experiences that most normal people would. I was on the road immediately.
Did you like cactus?
No.
Yeah, nobody likes cactus, right?
It was one of those. My mom made it for me, and I ate it. Cómetelo. Okay. Cómetelo. Okay. I don't eat cactus now. But the point is, those guys out there would haze the hell out of me and trying to explain that I was this guy trying to do stand-up comedy.
Did they have a good name for you, like Bodo de Queso or something?
I'm sure they had names for me. I have no idea. I mean, they would just haze me left and right and just talk smack, but there was no one name.
We had one husky Hispanic guy, electrician's son or something. He was known as Bodo de Queso. So they
ball of cheese.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Bola de queso?
Yeah, they called it like they saw it over there,
Okay, yeah, ball of cheese. Well, that sounds good, but I don't know if being called that is a thing.
Kid was 15. I felt bad for him. I just remember they just sort of said what they thought. I think
no filter. There's no
filter.
They didn't care about hurting your feelings. There was no concern of shaming anyone. There was no body shaming back then. If you were fat, you knew it because you look in the mirror and you'd hear it.
Did you? How long did you stay in the footing or the ditch? Did you ever get out of the ditch and into doing some crown molding or something?
No. I did that for I want to say a couple of months. And during this time, I got evicted. Again, went to go live with my brother for a little bit. What wound up, it's a messed up story, but what wound up happening was I accidentally killed my boss's dog on the job.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I had that happen too.
The boss goes, hey, go get these guys some sodas. And so I got in my car. And I'm pulling out of the driveway, and I didn't realize that he had I knew he had a little dog. He had like a little Yorkie. And the dog, I guess, was blind and deaf. And I had no idea. I didn't see the dog in front of my car, and I don't want to running the dog over. And so once that happened, it was devastating. It was one of the most traumatic things I'd ever been through. I had to run over to my boss and tell him, hey, I'm sorry, but I just, And then to watch, the guy he was probably already in his 80s. And to watch this guy just fall to the ground and I couldn't take it. I basically just, I'm sorry. And I never came back. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had the same thing happen almost on a construction site. Mm. There was a guy, my foreman was named Mike. Horrible, horrible guy. Hated him. Yelled at everybody. Intimidated everybody, threatened everybody. That's how it was. Everyone, it was lawless. You know what I mean? People threatened people and all that kind of shit. The only time the guy was in a good mood, he had a little pit bull puppy named Buckwheat. And he loved the puppy. And he'd be one of these guys who's an asshole to everybody. And then he'd be like, oh, Buckwheat, yeah. And he was in a good mood again. And we're all standing there. And he said, I'm going to the lumber store. Now look out for Buckwheat. And he kind of handed us buckwheat and got in his pickup truck and took off. It was on Wilshire Boulevard. And he got in his pickup truck and took off down the driveway, set buckwheat down. Buckwheat started chasing the truck. Mike turned off onto Wilshire and just headed to the lumber yard, and Buckwheat ran out into the street and got run over. Now he's gone. He's not coming back for an hour and a half. Buckwheat's dead, and we're all just sitting there going, "This guy's the kind of guy get a pickaxe out of his truck
he's gonna take it out of
start swinging at you." I just remember being like, "Oh God, it's just the worst." We're all just sitting around. We're like trying to get back to work, but when Mike pulls back up in the pickup, who's gonna go talk to him? So we're very simpatico.
Who wound up having to tell him the bad news?
Well, thankfully, he handed it to a guy named Jeff Gaines, and he was big. Jeff was a big dude, and he was a surfer fireman. So I was like, "We elect you, Jeff, to go tell Mike what happened to Buckwheat," which is heavy. But by the way, I did it for another 10 years after that. I didn't leave. I didn't
you were still there for that long?
I didn't have the comedy chops that you had back at the tender age of 21, 22. But I know I want to get back to you sleeping on your brother's balcony, because I don't know if I'm picturing the right apartment, but you can kind of judge an apartment complex by what's on the balcony. When you go into certain neighborhoods, you see a lot of super depressing kids' toys pushed out there, and towels and laundry and shit. And I'm always like, you go to a really nice neighborhood, there's just a couple of chairs out on the balcony.
The balcony's used to enjoy the scenery.
It's not part of the apartment, like where they're using for storage. Like and I used to work in I used to do earthquake rehab in Koreatown and stuff, and those balconies would just be filled with shit. Always got depressed when I saw the kids' toys out there, because that meant there were kids inside that hellhole. But I never saw a Mexican sleeping on a balcony.
So here's the deal. My brother was an apartment manager for this very large apartment complex, okay? And so one of the biggest issues he had as an apartment manager was people saying, "Oh, it's only going to be 2 or 3 people that are going to be living there," and then finding out that it's 10.
What city was this in?
Anaheim. And so he was always having to crack the whip on everybody. Like, "Hey, look, you said it's only going to be 3. This is the price because it's only 3, and you have all these people there."
Right.
And they would, of course, "Hey, come on. Oh, they're visiting. And it's been 2 months. Come on."
Yeah.
Then you got to change the thing, and it's got to be. It was always an issue. So my brother was hardcore about following the rules and making sure that everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. And so when I got in my situation where I was evicted, my brother said, "All right, you come live with me, but here's the thing." And I go, I'll sleep on the couch." He goes, "I can't have you sleeping on the couch because people come by at 7 a.m. every morning with issues that are, it's a huge complex. So every morning someone would show up, "Hey, senor, the sink is leaking," or, "Hey, there's an issue with the toilet. Hey, there's an issue with the lights." So he always needed to address things. And he goes, "I can't do that if my brother, I can't be enforcing that whole too many people in the house if my brother's sleeping on the couch." They're going to see that when I open the door.
Man, your brother with the rules.
A little bit of a dick back then. But anyway, he goes, he says, "Look, man, if you sleep on the balcony, I'm not going to mess with you. There's a blind thing so you can pull it down so you don't get hit in the face with the sun, and you can chill out there. There's a futon." And it was even though it was a big balcony, I was outside. It was summertime, so, I wasn't freezing. I was out there on the balcony with his bird. He had a bird, and so the bird and I were roomies out there on that balcony.
Well, what time would you go to bed?
Well, as a comic, dude, sometimes we go to bed, sometimes we don't. I was up really, really late. I'd always come home really, really late. And so hearing that 7 o'clock in the morning, because he says, "You can sleep on that couch." He goes, "But you got to be up and out by 7. And I'm like, "There's no way, dude. I'm going to bed at freaking 4.
Right. Would he let you watch TV through the sliding glass door?
I didn't really hang out. It was more so just that I needed a place to sleep. I would keep myself busy during the day doing whatever, but I didn't want to be, in the way. My sister got word after a couple months that I was sleeping on my brother's balcony. She goes, "Just cut that shit. Grab your clothes, come over the house, we'll figure it out." And so I wound up sleeping on her couch until I was able to make comedy work. It took me a couple years to really start making money. And then eventually I started chipping in, and then we wound up moving into a 2-bedroom, and then I just started paying half the rent.
Your brother sounds a little douchey.
Yeah. I got a couple issues going on there, but that's
Did
another
he
story.
change his tune at all when you got really successful?
Yes and no. It's we could do a whole 2 hours on this topic alone. I don't really have the best relationship with him. I haven't talked to him in about 10 years, but I saw him about a month ago by accident.
By accident?
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
I went to go pick up my nieces, and he came outside because he was picking up a delivery from FedEx. And FedEx and I rolled up at the same time. And so his wife, my sister-in-law, was like, "Hey, look," she's just trying to make us, be at peace. And so he came over, looked at me, I looked at him, and he's like, "Hey," hey. And he tried to shake my hand, and I'm like, I give him a fist bump. I go, "I don't shake hands no more, man." It's just freaking COVID.
Well, the moral of the story is don't be a douche. But if you're going to be a douche, make sure you're douchey to the right people, because you never know where people are going to end up. And I don't know, do you financially take care of people in your family?
Yeah, there's but it's not a. Back in the day, it was definitely excessive, and I think over the years, it was like I had to start blocking and cutting people off because I'm like, what are you? You're just relying on me, and you're not doing anything for yourself. And so there comes a point where it's just, no, you're just taking advantage. And they're like, no, you need to help. Why do I need? There's nothing wrong with you. It'd be different if you were in a wheelchair. You have issues with, you can't find work. And even if you can't find work, I'm sure you can get unemployment. But, it'd be different. Oh, they're about to take away the car, or the house is in jeopardy, or something where it's a one-time help versus being,
right.
Now it's an expected thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell me I have a limited amount of experience with this and family and people and stuff you do, people you do stuff for. I've never found that it really worked. First off,
anybody I've tried to help, it's anytime money gets involved, it's going to go to shit. I've never had one situation where I tried to help someone out financially, and they always say, "Oh, loan me the money." It's never. I don't think I've ever been paid back. There's never been a time when it's like, well, I'll pay it back on the 15th, and then the 15th comes, and then the money comes. It's always like, you just got to just eat it.
No, it's never happened. And that, the sort of math part I get, like, you need money, so you're probably going to need more money, and you're probably not very good at making money, and I don't expect to be paid back. But there's an emotional element of it, which is like, you could put someone's kids through private school and not get a Christmas card that year from that person. You know what I mean? Like, there's a weird, I've found the people I've given nothing to are much nicer and much more generous.
Thank you.
And I think it's an overcompensation or something. They feel some guilt, maybe some shame. I think there's some shame that's attached to you helping them out or bailing them out, which makes them sort of, they overcompensate and sometimes even get a little bit nasty, and you end up walking away from it going, "The fuck, I just put a roof on your house. Why are you being a dick?"
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's been a few instances that were very, very similar to that.
It's an epidemic. It's never, let me make you a big cactus stew.
Nice.
No, it's the opposite, and it's weird, but it's consistent. That's the thing.
And it's like you're being guilted for being successful. So because you're successful, you have to automatically, you gotta help out,
and
because you got there.
They also think they think you have a magic wand too. They're like, "Could I get a job on your site, on your thing with the thing?" And then you go, "Are you in the union?" And they go, "No, I'm not in the union." "Well, the showrunner says you got to be in the union." They're like, "Come on, you could do something." It's like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't have a magic wand. I could suggest, but if you're not in the union,
I've been
then
guilted so many times into situations that I'm just like, why did I even go there? Why did I try? And unfortunately, I've lost a lot of family members. I don't talk to anybody. I mean, there's maybe one sister that I talk to out of the four.
What I don't get about these people, could be family, could be old people from the neighborhood, or sometimes it's just a neighbor. Like, I've had some horrible neighbors, and I'm like, I'm a rich guy who's a journeyman carpenter who's got a garage full of tools. I could be the best neighbor you ever had. I'm the neighbor you want. I could fucking fix anything. And I'll tell you a joke. Why are you getting me to hate you? What's in it for you? You know what I mean? Like you're a generous guy. You're a nice guy. You could have a nice relationship with you. I could be coming by the warehouse in Long Beach and checking out some of the micro buses and the 23 window and the 21 window.
Right.
And then you'd comp me a couple of tickets to Dodger Stadium and get me a couple of laminates, and I'd be drinking some IPA backstage. And after the show, you'd invite me to the party because we're having an after party. It could all just be in that. I could live in that world with you. You didn't have to give me $1 million. You could just like me. I'm family. I'm an old friend from the neighborhood. What's wrong with that? Why do people fuck that up? And they fuck it up. They fuck it up. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, because I don't like any of my neighbors.
No.
They're all, yeah.
Yeah, there's something. It's weird, right? Like, why are you establishing that? Or why, my thing is like, why do you want to have this kind of relationship with me? There's a lot of good stuff I could do for you. Why this? I mean, sometimes you'll see it with an employee. Sometimes you'll see it with a friend. Lots of sort of old neighborhood guys where you're like, once I got in a position, I was like, I can help you now. And they're like, you're not the boss of me. I wasn't like, I'll give you money. I was like, I can get you a job. I can get you a job in the business.
Yeah.
And they're like, fuck off. Weird, right?
Yeah.
You ever have that?
Yeah, many times. Many. As you're saying it the whole time, I'm like, and I'm attaching names to each one of your little stories. Like, oh, yeah, that's that guy.
What? And that's why I get angry at people when they go like, there's this like misconception where people go like, he just needs an opportunity. These people just need a chance. They just need an opportunity. You know how many fucking opportunities I've tried to hand to people and they told me to fuck myself? How many times have you like when I can help you do this, but you got to show up here?
I've lost count, and all it takes is just show that you're trying. Just be present. Try. Don't make me look like an asshole for trying to extend this and bend over backwards to create moments,
right,
and opportunities. And
now
it sucks. It really does. And again, you feel like, for me, I've always felt guilted. I felt shamed that, oh man, I'm not doing enough to help. But after a while, it's like, if you're not even trying to help be a good person to me, why should I extend all this to you? If all you're doing is bringing guilt, drama, freaking, bad attitude, it doesn't take a lot. Again, be on the good side. Why be on the bad side? Why approach it that way?
I'll tell you whose fault it is. It's society's fault. It's not their fault. They're fucking idiots. It's their friends, their family members, spouse. Because they get with them, and they go, oh, I was just trying to ask Fluffy if I could do something on his new TV show, and he just fucking slammed the door in my face. And then everyone goes, well, you know what it's like. You start off as a nice guy, then all of a sudden you get this big head because Hollywood comes a-calling, and now he thinks he's too good for the old Jenny on the block anymore. He wants to hang out with it. It is not that. It's that person's a fucking lazy dick, and he's grabby and greedy. And the person who's talking to them, their loser buddy or wife or husband, should be going, how about you fucking put your hat in your hand, put your pride aside, and get the fuck back in there. Tell them you're sorry and make yourself useful.
Thank you.
Instead, they sit there and they go, yeah, I know. No, I know. He's changed. Yeah, he's different. Well, money, it does that to people. Fuck off.
Wow. Hey, you want to hang out? Yeah, I got cars and people you can talk to like that.
I'll show up at your shop and yell at everyone you went to high school with. You want me to do that for you? You don't have to play the heavy, Fluffy. I'll do it. For a change, I'll be the heavy one.
Oh, man. Yeah, you can drive anything you want. Yeah, come on.
We should do a podcast called Successful People and All the Assholes They Went to High School With, and we just get them all drunk and they just fucking go off.
Wow.
On all their stories of all the people they tried to help and how shitty they all were.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot.
How you become the asshole in the equation.
Always. You're always the dick. You're always the, ooh, look at you. Right. Oh, Hollywood. Oh.
And I don't know if at least I got white people to deal with. I don't know if there's a cultural thing where they think
I got a whole rainbow, man. Hey, everybody, you name it.
You got them all,
Everybody. Everybody.
You make me laugh.
Yeah, I got to hear about cactus, and I got to hear about, molasses and shortbread, and also hear about, you name it, man.
How'd your mom season those eggs, man? I can't. Cactus and eggs. It sounds like fucking fried hell to me.
I don't know how she would do it, but I ate it. I didn't ask how it was made.
So now you move in with your sister, and you're doing okay. You got your 2-bedroom now. You got your own bedroom. You're off the balcony.
I'm off the balcony.
You got a roof.
That was my first tour, the off the balcony tour.
Off the balcony tour. And you starting to get a little traction in the comedy department?
Yeah. Well, I made my own little office desk in the kitchen. Basically it was just a phone and a notepad and a little tiny like a Rolodex type thing where you just put numbers in it because I still couldn't really use the phone that way. I no longer had my cell phone.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't afford it.
Right.
And so I was just making phone calls and making my connections and all right, okay, hey, we can get you $150 here. You can go to freaking Des Moines or go to over here or go over there, and little by little just building that up. And it wasn't until I did my Comedy Central half-hour special that I got a little heat from that and started working a lot more clubs. And
How old were you when you did that?
About 22, 23.
Wow.
It started moving pretty quickly once I started getting TV under my belt. And then I was on a show on Nickelodeon called All That. So I did a whole season with them there. And that was a game changer because now I was making TV money weekly as basically a lead. And so every week bringing home these big checks. I forgot one check one time. That's how much money was coming in. And that's when I moved out of my sister's house. And then I moved into I moved here to Burbank, or next door, in Burbank, and I lived in a townhome. Mm-hmm. So I was doing very well for myself. And then, started going on the road and then little by little creating a following. There were certain markets where I could go and sell tickets and I would get door deals.
Right. So you got 80% of whatever the door was or whatever it is?
Whatever the deal, the deals always start off like 70 and then 75 and then 80. And if once you're like calling your own shots, you get 95.
Right. And if you're selling out multiple shows, Jesus Christ, something like Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, there's no, because people have asked me, hey, did you ever think, no, I just wanted to pay my rent. I just wanted to pay, that's all I wanted. That was my only goal. I want to pay my rent. I want to stay home.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is to make money doing what you want to do and make enough money so that you can be semi-comfortable doing what you want to do. And then everything past that's just kind of gravy, right?
Right.
But Dodger Stadium was... So what's it cost to just get the venue of Dodger Stadium?
Ooh, you're looking at the numbers I've seen so far. It's over $1 million.
So
rent.
So if I wanted to do I'm not I've seen the lottery commercials where the family wins the lottery and then they rent out Dodger Stadium and they play like a softball game at Dodger Stadium. So it's if you want that venue for a night, it's $1 million.
The price I'm coming up with is we're going in and we're there for over 3 days. So there's a setup, the time to set up, the first show, the second show, and then tear down. So that's a number of days that you're going to be occupying that space. For one night, I got to imagine it's a lot less, but because we're there over the course of more than half a week, that's why it's that price. Plus, there's production on top of that.
Right. Yeah. So how many cameras, jibs, booms,
there's
sets.
one price just for the building itself, and then there's all the other expenses with production, lighting, companies, and everybody's got to get their cut. And the promotional companies, we got Live Nation, and then we got my promoter, and then just everybody that's
So,
Netflix is in the mix. So it's a lot of moving parts.
Is it $1.5 million or $1.7 million or whatever just to put it on? Or somewhere in that.
For this thing to happen, it's costing close to 3.
Close to 3. Mm-hmm. So now obviously you can recoup a lot of that in ticket sales.
Ticket sales, plus remember it's being recorded for Netflix. So once I turn it in for a special, then there's that.
Does Netflix pre-buy it with you, or do you take it, edit it, and present it?
No, I have deals with Netflix. You can do it that way. That's one way that I did it. And then there's once you have a deal with them, I had a deal to do 2 specials, these last 2 specials. So that's already, that's already worked out. It doesn't matter if I want to do this special at the Ice House or if I want to do it at Dodger Stadium. I already got the fee that they're going to give me.
Right. So you owe them 2 specials, and you could go full Dave Chappelle, or in one of his specials or whatever. Like just
I can go full production, make it big and
or
beautiful,
go
or
into
make it
the belly room,
basically
of the Comedy Store and light a cigarette. And he's the only guy who gets to smoke indoors. People talk about racism, but there's only one human being who gets to smoke indoors, and that is a black man. So we can't live in 2 races as a society, can we?
Oh my God.
And now I'm thinking about Chappelle. You got your own fluffy clothes line. You must have.
And that's another thing.
You got a lot of merch you're going to sell, right?
I had no idea that I was going to have such a huge merch business. And I think that's one of the things that took off that nobody saw coming, including myself. It was just one of those. I got lucky early on that I was just trying to find ways to make ends meet, and supplement the income. And so I was making my own CDs back in the day and selling them at the shows. I'd carry my own CD printer, and just
Really?
I have a buddy of mine who's still to this day. My original employee had a little CD tower, and he was burning my CD to sell after the shows, and I'd autograph the disc, and so instead of partying it up with that money at the end of the week, I'd invest and I'd buy more spindles, I'd buy more CD burners, and so I had a whole production line, and I just kept growing it, and then eventually I recorded a new CD the right way, and I did professional packaging and professional everything front and back. It was nice, and then I'd start selling that for more, and then I would invest and sell more, and then record a second one, and then eventually started selling T-shirts, and then a new T-shirt, and then now we got 4 shirts, and now CDs, T-shirts, and then posters. Okay, posters, and then here's pictures. Okay, it's pictures. You started growing it. Eventually, I took over my garage at the house. My girl was pissed, and I had to get a warehouse, and then got in the warehouse, and within a year, we grew out of the warehouse, and now I had to get a double wide. And in the course of 2 years, grew out of that. Now that's why I have the building I have now, and that this merch thing has just taken over. And so now there's everything under the sun, whether it's hats, T-shirts, freaking Funko dolls, other figures. And I've made good relationships with a lot of different toy companies, and so we've got an awesome. Our merch is awesome. It really is.
Where did the entrepreneurial kind of thing with you doesn't seem like it comes from the family. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But on the other hand, you were doing a great job selling those phones when you were 20. So there's always something in you that was kind of a salesperson to some degree. But now the entrepreneurial spirit is really coming to full bloom. Is that anything you studied, or has it just been a slow progression?
I had a real basic understanding of business, but you're dealing with people every day, and you understand that, okay, supply and demand. Well, what do people want? What do people need? What are people willing to pay a premium for? The cost of having a business. What does it cost to have a place to store? Is it cheaper to just make and not have a place to store, or have someone else make it? Because a lot of times people don't want to deal with the day-to-day. They'd rather, I'll just have this company do it, and they send me a check.
Farm it out. Right.
That's one way to do it, or you can try to grow it, make it bigger and better yourself. Because I found that I tried doing that early on, and I'm like, why am I doing that? I can do this better myself. I got inspired a lot from professional wrestling. I know it sounds random. I got inspired not so much for what happens in the ring. Okay, whatever happens in the ring is whatever happens in the ring. I'm talking about the way the shows are branded, the way the merchandise is set up, the way it's presented, like really high end quality things, the pricing of things, buying in bulk. You go to Costco enough times, you realize that, hey, the more you buy, the less it costs. And then, okay, this pen cost me 50 cents to make, and I turn around and sell it for $4.
Right.
Then you start to understand, okay, so much money you put away, and so much money you enjoy and have fun with, and then continue to do this, and then find the next thing like this to create, and then what's that going to cost?
What's a tour for you like now? Is it?
It's insane. It's insane. We got 3 tour buses, 4 semi trucks. It's a rock and roll show. It really is.
3 tour buses.
3 tour buses, and I couldn't even tell you the names of the drivers, and it's sad because
4 semi trucks.
4 semi trucks, and one of those trucks is pure merch.
Wow.
Pure merch. and the rest is, of course, the production, the stage, and everything. It's not just a curtain and a stage. It's like, no, there's moving parts. There's things that go up and down. There's lights. There's giant screens on the sides of the stage, and so when people show up, they're like, whoa, okay, Also, too, I've kept the prices very, very honest and realistic. I don't price gouge. I don't get too crazy with it. Yeah, the secondary market will blow up the ticket prices, but I make it very friendly. Like, for example, the Dodger Stadium, people could have seen that show for $19.
Wow.
Like the nosebleeds up on top, I made everything up on top $19. Okay, and of course the floor, it started at $130, and then it went from $19 to $130. So even then, like a Lady Gaga show, it's $130 for the nosebleeds.
Right.
Like her cheapest ticket is my most expensive, and so but it's one of those things too. You want to make it so that everyone can come.
Man, if you guys ever became a power couple, and it became Fluffy Gaga,
Fluffy Gaga.
I would watch that show.
Little Fluffy Gaga.
I don't know why I like the way that sounds. So, are you on the bus? Are you flying ahead?
We fly. So let's say I'm working Thursday through Sunday. We fly out from Long Beach to wherever it is that we're at. They pick us up at the airport in the bus, and then from there we ride around. And then when it's time to leave, we on Sunday after the show, jump on the plane and fly back home.
Wow! Little boy in Long Beach, eating cacti for breakfast. And now look at you. Well, last thought, be remiss if I didn't ask your thoughts on the whole Chris Rock Oscar thing, since you're such a seasoned comedian. A lot of comedians been weighing in. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I've had a lot of people say, "Hey, do you think that was staged?" I go, "No, there's nothing about that anybody could really benefit from."
Yes.
People say, "Oh, well, Chris Rock's selling tickets." I go, "Chris Rock was already selling tickets." Jada's going to do the red table with Will, and it's going to be a big thing. I'm like, they don't need it.
No, and also, why would Will Smith agree to be a pariah? You know what I mean? Like, go up there and slap one of the most beloved comedians around and have everyone think you did it. What's in it for Will?
Real quick, my director of operations who's listening to us right now, she goes, "It's 5 trucks. Thank you."
5 semi-trucks.
5 trucks. Thank you.
5.
Sorry.
Oh, my God. 5. You're so bad for the environment, Fluffy.
Right there, 5 trucks. I'm like, all right, okay, 5 trucks.
5 semi-trucks. Jesus Christ. I mean, Led Zeppelin didn't do more than 2 in their prime, I guess. I mean, that's as big as any rock act on the planet.
The guy that's running everything, he works with the Foo Fighters. He works with all kinds of bands. And
yeah.
He's he goes, "Man," he goes, "I had no idea that your shows were like this." And he took it on, and it's rock and roll. It's pretty cool.
So it wasn't the slap not done on purpose.
Anyway,
sorry.
Back. Thanks for the text. For me, I feel like Will Smith is going through so much that he has not dealt with.
Yeah.
And this was an opportunity for just him to have a little bit of control at that moment of something, even though it wasn't the smartest thing to do. I just think he was at the end of it, and he was tired of not dealing, and it built up, and that's what happened. Yeah, because you could see the pain in his face.
There's something's going on. It's like when you go to the supermarket and you got the woman in front of you, and someone is saying to the woman, like, "We don't accept a Discovery card." She's crying, and you go, "What's going on?" And it's not really the Discovery card. Something else. There's something built up. Mm-hmm. There's something. She's having a meltdown, and it's over almost nothing. That means there's something else in there that's been percolating for a while.
There's a lot of pain, a lot of things brewing, a lot of things that he's had thrown in his face, a lot of not dealing, which I think is the reason why you always see him being so overly positive, overly energetic, overly trying to be supportive and helpful, because I think a lot of times you push a lot of stuff out because you yourself need or want that.
Yeah,
and I just think that it's built up to a point now where it's like it's very toxic. And whatever he's not dealing with came out that night.
Well, thank you for that insight, Gabriel Iglesias. Dodger Stadium, don't worry about the show on May 7th. That's sold out, but still some tickets for the May 6th show, which has been added. And also, you can go to fluffyguy.com for all the info, or just follow the convoy of semi-trucks and they roll into town. Fluffy's going to be wherever they stop.
Down, loaded up in trucking.
Oh, yeah. The guys, God damn it. Get in that bird, or get in that Trans Am with the chicken on the hood. Lead the 5 semi-trucks. Get the hat. Get the squawk box. We'll get a shot of you coming down the desert road. E-brake it. Get a little sideways, light it up, and take it off. Come on, man. Start the show that way.
That'd be kind of cool.
Film that
would
shit.
Be kinda, you know what's funny is that the car came with the Burt Reynolds hat. It came with the bandit hat.
Put the Burt Reynolds hat on. Get a nice shot of you going through the desert with those 5 semis behind you.
I think I got to do that.
All right, Gabriel. Always a pleasure, my friend. Great to see you as per usual.
Thank you, Adam.
My pleasure. Until next time, Adam Carolla for Gabriel Iglesias saying mahalo. Boy, that's a white name.
Yeah.
And you put your la in front of it. I'm sorry. That's our name. You go get your own names. That's a whitey name.
Well,
you're now appropriating. I'm saying the cultural appropriation, it's a two-way street. You know what I mean? White chicks aren't allowed to make tacos in Portland. Well, then Tanya's our name. Sure. So how about this? Well, I bet you one of those 2 chicks is named Tanya.